This episode of Star Trek Monthly Monday, number 35, is sponsored by Nathaniel Miller. Nathaniel writes, "Love all your shows, but this is especially for Star Trek Monthly Mondays because Trek was the start of it all for me in daily reruns in the early 1970s. Regards." Me too. Yeah, us as well. Regards, Nate Miller from Buffalo, New York. And we have a second sponsor this month.
What?
Unbelievable.
What?
It's unreal. It's awesome. We also have sponsorship from Tim Elliott, and he writes, "I would like to sponsor Star Trek Monthly Monday, the original series. I want to dedicate this show to my wife, who puts up with all my comics, toys, movies, and everything else in my collection." He says, "I love you." Is it Finula? It's Finula. I sure hope I'm pronouncing that right. Finula. She says, "Love the show, guys, and I hope I can help keep the lights on." And that's from Tim Elliott, Carrollton, Texas. So awesome.
Just who the hell are you?
He's James T. Kirk. Don't you read history?
What did you say your name was?
Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the USS Enterprise. Which one of you is the captain?
Did we violate the treaty, Captain?
Red alert! All hands, battle stations!
This is Captain Kirk.
Incorrect.
Can we just get down to it, please?
Prepare to attack. All hands battle stations.
And now, Scott Gardner and Chris Honeywell.
So welcome back to Star Trek Monthly Monday. This is number 35, and we've got a humdinger of an episode planned for you. We are going to be looking at a classic, a true classic from Star Trek, the original series. I'm just going to come right out and say it. Largely considered to be the best episode of the series, at least from me anyway. I think Chris feels much the same way, and I know that fandom at large seems to be torn between two episodes, but for me, this is the hands-down favorite. But anyway, I'm putting the cart before the horse. My name is Scott Gardner, and I am joined, as always, by my bestest pal, Chris Honeywell.
How's it going,
man?
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good. I'm actually having a really good day today. Everything's sort of
we'll put a
falling
stop to
in
that.
line perfectly. So yeah. So
we can't have that.
No. So I put a podcast right in the middle of it just so I can have something to mope about by the end of the day.
Bomb in the mail. Dum-dee bomb in the mail. All right. So what the hell are we doing? We're going to do a commentary.
Yes, we're going unorthodox. We've been very unorthodox the last couple months, and we're like, in this and the next Star Trek show, we sort of jettisoned the comics so we could focus more on these individual shows. And usually with our Next Generation show, we'll do 2 episodes.
Right.
But we're doing the last episode of the first season. So
yes,
we're gonna, we're gonna fine tune our focus on this one, and And usually we could just talk about this episode for hours and hours, but we decided to do a commentary this time.
Well, I liked your idea because my original idea was actually to do almost like 2 episodes just for this one show that we're examining, City on the Edge of Forever, to do basically a talky episode of us and then do another one that was a commentary. And you had the idea, hey, why don't we do the commentary up front and then we just, we'll carry on just talking about the episode for whatever we have left.
We can hit everything we don't hit in the commentary afterwards.
Yeah. So I really liked that idea, and I like what you've got planned. I don't know if you want to keep that a secret or not, so I won't spoil it, but you've got a little surprise of a topic past City on the Edge of Forever.
No, I'll say it because then they can sit on it the whole time waiting for us to talk about it. And it also gives me a chance to shout out one of our listeners, Alan Leach, who sent me a big old media mail care package, which when a package comes to my house and it has the media mail stamp on it, that's when I start getting excited, because I know it's full of books or something similar to that. It's full of media, which is what I love. And one of the probably the best thing in this huge package, which you'll hear about as we get to each episode that the item falls into, but this one item falls perfectly for this episode. I think he sent this timed so that I could have this in time for this, but he sent me Harlan Ellison's The City on the Edge of Forever, the original teleplay that became the classic Star Trek episode. And it's about 200 and change, it's almost 300 page book, and it's got the teleplay and about 3 rewrites of it, and it's got about 3 of the early drafts of just the storyline, and the rest of it is basically Harlan Ellison ranting and raving about the whole situation surrounding it. So it's a great book. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I can't wait because I read the book and I've been wanting to. I think I had actually mentioned that I would try to dig this up for this episode, and here it came. And so I have a lot to say about with this, and it'll be hard for me not to talk about it during the commentary, but I'm going to try to keep the commentary just to that episode and how I've always remembered it and all that and stuff. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I would say, I think I said this last time, I think this is the best Star Trek episode, but it's not my favorite. But it's the best Star Trek episode. It's got everything in it, that you could possibly want in a Star Trek episode, and you got it in the first season. So
which one is your favorite? Have you said?
I think we all know what my favorite is.
That one is my favorite for different reasons. But I mean, if I had to, if somebody just plain out asked, what do you think is the best episode? Mm-hmm. I think this one's the best one. Is it my favorite one? It's weird because it's debatable. It's my favorite as far as it's a quality episode. It's great television. But yeah, the Enemy Within is almost said Enemy on the Edge of Forever.
Oh my God.
That would be awesome.
That's an episode right there. We have the technology now to make the Enemy on the Edge of Forever.
That would be awesome to see Kirk all flipped out, evil Kirk go back through the Guardian. Yeah, that's an episode just waiting to write itself right there.
It would be great, but you know what? When the fandom got a hold of it, it would end up being the Tribbles on the edge of the Enemy Within or something like that.
Well,
still would be a good...
I think that could be a lot of fun.
The evil Kirk is sent throughout history to gather up and kill all the Tribbles that they spilled through the Guardian of Forever, trying to get rid of them.
I think we should work on that in our oodles of spare time. And
yes, I'll put that on my list of projects that I'll be getting right to.
All right, are we ready to hit the play button on this thing?
All right, you want me to count it down? And
Yeah.
So what Scott and I are doing, or we are watching actually the what are they called? The enhanced versions.
Yeah.
So
And
we both have our players. We have our timer set at 0, and our players put on pause. And I'm gonna do a 3 count, and then at the say go, we hit the button, and we watch the city on the edge of forever.
All right.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh. Dun, 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 dun.
I love the planets in the enhanced versions.
Yeah. Hang on, Scotty. Hang on.
I can't help but picture the cameraman.
Why has her got a black band on her arm? I just noticed that.
Oh, you're
Is
right.
she in mourning?
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah, I just now noticed it actually.
There's a lot of great tippiness in in this episode. The cameraman tipper on this one was really a go-getter. Although it's really, I like the subtle ones where you just hear the little boom.
What he's actually saying is this is actually more important than Sulu getting fried.
Yeah,
I'm not going to bother to come down there.
Keep your eyes on the prize, Captain. I always end up watching all the guys working on their panels and squinting down at them and looking like they're really paying attention and doing something.
This guy is so focused on his so important job of maintaining orbit.
And basically, McCoy's about to administer a injection of space meth to Sulu, methadone type thing. And see, he's just like,
huh?
Why are you guys so gloomy?
Sure is gloomy. What you don't realize at the end of this episode is now Sulu and McCoy are hooked on this stuff for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, but it keeps them alert and what I find funny is later on, and they're like, oh, it was set for Cordrazine, his. Oh, did you see that railing just almost come out of its?
Did it?
Yeah. You see that stuff? It's so you get an idea that the hypo just maybe has water in it, and it just synthesizes whatever drug you need for it in it. I think that's
actually not
cool.
a bad idea. For a change, DeForest Kelly gets to throw the Kirk fits. I like that.
Oh yeah, he's like finally I get to well everybody's got their
get the hell out of that turbo lift.
He always has little freakouts. He always gets to rant and rave and get mad, but he's
got a look on his face like, what the hell was that all about?
But I mean, Spock always gets some weird freakish situation where he gets to experience emotions, and then Kirk just they just let Shatner go all the time. So yeah, DeForest Kelly gets to really shine in this episode, and when he comes out of his Cordrazine haze, it's a really nice little bit of acting too.
I have really come over the years to appreciate DeForest Kelly in a way that I never really did as a kid watching Star Trek. To me, it was always like Kirk, Spock, and then there was that other dude, and it's
Doctor.
Yeah, and now it's kind of like he really has stepped up in my opinion. I like the Doctor just as much as them. Beautiful CG work with the enhanced. That's gorgeous. It's got that nice haze around the planet, just like Tatooine in Star Wars and stuff. It looks really good.
Oh, well, there's subtle things too, because as the ship was going around the edge of the planet, the camera moved a little bit, and you could see the stars shift in perspective behind. It's just nice little touches. And now McCoy gets to beat somebody into unconsciousness. He's just like DeForest Kelly, and oh yeah, hoo ha! That was our code for that kind of knockout. The hoo ha.
Hoo-ha!
Ha! You hit him in the back, which makes him tense up, and then you hit him right in the neck, and it puts him out.
See,
And
if
here
Kyle
comes-
had offered to make him a chicken sandwich, he probably wouldn't have done that.
I love how the Enterprise is full of, like, has actual black people on it, but they still have 60s Michael Jackson haircuts. That look has come back in the 23rd century.
All right, Tito, you take the helm.
Yeah.
Alert! 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 It's a triple dog dare alert, Captain.
It's so hard not to bring up the difference, because Harlan Ellison didn't really have McCoy in this one at all. And
What?
So,
How the hell did that work?
well, he was. I'll explain it before, but yeah, we wouldn't have had. DeForest Kelley almost didn't get his chance to be the heavy in this one.
You know what I never really noticed until the last couple of viewings I've had of this is that this episode's made up almost exclusively of music from other episodes.
Just chopped up, yeah. It's a lot of chopped up cues, and I love how they save money here by Kirk going, the city goes to, the city extends to both horizons.
Right.
It's like, oh, all right. So
well,
that's
Spock
pretty
has
big.
a ridiculous comment here in a second. Something about it, this being, 10,000 centuries? Now, my math's not good enough to work that out real quick in my head without a calculator, but come on, that pillar does not look 10,000 centuries old.
Well,
I'm
you
pretty
don't
sure
know what it looked like originally. It could have been a whole mountain with a little hole in it, and now it's just come down to this, Who knows what's... there could have been 1,000 cities built around it, and that have
shit was
crumbled
built
to
to
dust.
last, I guess.
Yeah. They don't build... The last Guardian of Forever I got was a piece of shit. It lasted about 6 months before it just basically spit you into, like, 2 weeks before, and, who cares, And then you can't send it back because it costs... You might as well just buy a new one,
I'm going to get my one piece of bragging right out of the way immediately at the beginning of this one. That
guy who's with Uhura. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
but
go ahead.
He looks just like the politician Mike Huckabee.
Getting to actually jump through the Guardian mock-up at the Kennedy Space Center, I mean, it was such a geek fulfillment for me after having seen this so many times as a kid. And they had it flickering just like it's doing right here as it talks. I love that. That is so cool.
I have a short in my neon lights. With these enhanced editions, you notice things like Spock was a smoker. He's got a bad case of smoker teeth.
Huh? Says the guy who couches his answers in riddles all the frickin' time.
All the time, yeah. And I like how McCoy's face just keeps getting a little more patchy and patchy all the time.
All right, I caught something today when I was watching this. All right, we're watching Scotty and this other security guy walking around, and DeForest Kelley's hiding right in front of them behind some rocks. Nobody's got a frickin' tricorder with them as they're on supposedly a search party.
Exactly.
Come on.
I mean, he's doing a lot of stand up behind a rock and tiptoe away,
do, 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 do. This part I like a lot. This reminds me a
gateway
lot
to
of
the stock footage.
Yeah, see, I got to stop doing that because we'll have Luke, Jack, and Eddie writing to us going, hey, I had no idea what you were talking about when you said this part. I like a lot. So this is the part where the Guardian is actually showing the images inside. And it's cool that they've got that like mist effect coming down because today they could actually do that, with technology where they can project right on the mist itself.
Right.
And so it's neat. This was almost like foreshadowing that technology, even though that's not how they did it in the episode. But it still looks that way. It's really cool.
Yeah. And it makes the stock footage look less like stock footage.
Right.
And this was the first time I caught like where Spock was like, it's coming up in a few seconds here where he's like, oh shit, I haven't been recording this. I should be recording this.
Right.
Because I always wondered, I never caught that as a kid, and I always wondered how the hell could they be in the past and accessing computers, I always thought they were somehow accessing the ship's computer, and I'm
okay,
how can you access a ship's computer in the future, or this information out, just because you can build a computer doesn't mean you can start looking at the internet in 1930.
Right.
So but it's because Spock recorded just enough of the Guardian of Forever on his tricorder to play back important stuff.
I think that was a bad piece of dialogue on Kirk's part too, where he said he started to ask Spock. Oh, I love this part where McCoy jumps through. It's just a great shot.
I like how as soon as they get
dives in the dirt.
Of course he does. And then he look at him look around like, oh, whoa.
And what's wrong with Scotty? He's acting like he got clobbered or something, but he didn't. All he did was stand there and go, Dr. McCoy, no! He didn't do anything.
He's sensitive. He's rough and tumble, but he's really a sensitive guy at heart.
But Kirk had turned to... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I can't look at Scotty without thinking of your Uncle Randy, man. I'm sorry. It's that hairdo, especially the long shots. I just see it, like the gut. It's just perfect. I love the effect of when they jump through, too, how they go into slow motion just before they disappear.
This effect here, where Kirk goes, we're completely and totally alone, and he looks up, I never really noticed it before. I was reading something about this today. It might have been in the Star Trek Compendium or something, I forget. But it always looked really cool to me because it does like this slow pan.
Yeah.
And it goes up into the stars, and it always looked very reminiscent of something I knew, and I couldn't place it. And you know what it is? It's almost like the beginning of the Twilight Zone would do the same thing. I never really put it together before, but it really does. It looks cool. But Kirk had turned to Spock there a few minutes ago before McCoy jumped into it. It was saying something about could they use the Guardian to go back in time, but what he said is could we take Bones back to before the accident? And I'm thinking, that makes it sound like Kirk doesn't really understand how time travel works. Why the hell would you need to take McCoy back to prevent the accident? You wouldn't. You leave him there, you'd go back, you fix it. When you get back, he's okay.
Yeah. No, maybe Kirk doesn't quite understand. But yeah, I love it. I love how the Guardian of Forever just shows you like like battles and like you never see just like somebody sitting watching TV,
Somebody on the crapper, yeah, exactly.
On the crapper, reading a magazine, doing a crossword puzzle or something,
I would love to get a list.
Oh, there was a sign that said Abe Lincoln, so it's the first appearance of Abe Lincoln, first mention of Abe Lincoln in Star Trek. Yeah. It's foreshadowing.
I would love to get a list of the movies that they used for all the footage of the Guardian in this.
I'm sure it's somewhere. You gotta probably assume it belonged to Paramount.
Those shower ring earrings, shower curtain ring earrings that Uhura has. I don't think those are Starfleet regulation, are they?
They must.
Did you notice earrings?
I'm waiting for it to cut. Oh, good lord, they're quite colorful too. Maybe so. It's the future, man. Come on. If you got your undies poking out of the bottom of your skirt, then you can wear hoop earrings for Christ's sakes. No.
This is awesome.
Hey, look, one of the boxers is Mike Bailey. Oh, no, sorry, it's Will Bailey.
And the Guardian cleaned Kirk's pants. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what happens when you travel through time. You get your outfits pressed and cleaned. You can always see a lot of times on Kirk's. I've heard that these shirts were oftentimes pinned together, and look around his collar. It's great with these enhanced editions because you can really see, like you can see how his collar is just sort of pinned together. The shirt's just sort of.
You try that around here, and I'll split your face.
Yeah, watching this, I forgot, like, it's funny. You could tell that they put a little extra effort into this one. The camera angles, the lighting, especially the interior lighting of this. When they get into their apartment and stuff, it's just beautiful television lighting of this time period. You know, this is outdoors, so it's, of course, you know, they love this because they don't have to light this. There's one. We're going to count the number of times cars almost hit somebody in this episode.
Double dumbass on you! I'd like to see him go up there to get those clothes, and Bill Bixby's already up there stealing the clothes ahead of him.
It's just funny how many conventions of TV and drama and stuff I picked up from this episode as a kid. Like there's certain lines of dialogue in here that blew my mind as a kid that I thought were the most incredible dialogue. Like when Spock later on mentions that, you know, he's building a blah 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 out of using
a mnemonic memory circuit out of what is it, stone knives and bear skins. I still love
or something
that.
like that. Yeah, and as a little kid I was like, that is an awesome line. Officer O'Malley, the dumbest cop in all of New York City.
I really, really wish that they had gotten Chief O'Hara from the Batman show.
That would have been awesome.
Great.
Just swinging his nightstick in a circle. Okay, boyos. But Kirk is the worst liar in the world. he goes, yeah, and it was a mechanical rice picker, and they're like, I know you're lying because the music's going doop 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 doop.
Jimmy boy.
Yeah. All right.
I think this scene would work better. I like it and everything, but I think it would work a lot better for me if he just handed the clothes to Spock and then he just thumped the hell out of the police officer.
Exactly.
I mean, the guy's only armed with a nightstick, for Christ's sake.
But this is just like, what cop is gonna let somebody here? Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Come on. That's that kind of thing where people are like trying to distract you and touch you like that. That's the stuff that makes cops like knock you unconscious immediately, going, "What the hell are you doing?" Conk. You know, you don't do that. You know.
Spock must have used the pussy version of the Vulcan death grip there because he's already up and whistling the whistle already.
You mean the Vulcan pussy grip? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, did you see the guy with the purple pants?
It was.
I've never actually seen anybody wearing purple pants. That had to be Bill Bixby just strolling through the scene.
I thought it was a Riddler or something. Even I mean, as a film student, the lighting in this shot is awesome, just awesome TV lighting. They've got it set up so it's plausibly like light coming in through basement. All right, this, I have to bring up the Harlan Ellison book. This was one thing that probably really pissed him off. In his original script, he said, when Kirk and Spock put on their clothes, please, please, please don't let them fit well. Have them be ill-fitting. I hate it when, you know, people knock someone out and take their clothes or get clothes in there. He put that in the script, saying, please don't do that. They have to be ill-fitting so they look at, of course, Shatner is like, Shatner was not going to let them put ill-fitting clothes on him.
By this age and everything, I feel comfortable enough in my heterosexualness to say that Kirk looks damn good in those clothes. He really does.
because he went to wardrobe and he made sure that they gave him fitted clothes so the 40 years later we'd be sitting here going, man, damn, Kirk looks damn good in just clothes ripped off from the clothesline, you know.
Plus,
and meanwhile, there's like 5 old ladies like tailoring those to Shatner's weird little short guy dimensions. Because if you look at him, he's
even know that those were like men's clothes. They could have got up there and it was like 2 pairs of pants, and then everything else was like for a 12-year-old girl or something.
Yeah, it was. They were like, I don't know. I guess this is what they dressed in the 20th century.
Oh my God, it's hot Mary Poppins. She is really attractive, though.
This is the short time period where I found there's something. Yeah, there's something that I've always found not attractive with Joan Collins, but she works it as Edith Keeler in this one.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was thinking the same thing. As I beyond this, I never found her attractive in anything else.
I never found her a good actress either, but she pulls this off. I always thought, well, she didn't have to do much to pull off Edith Keeler, just be pretty and stuff. But upon watching this a new time, she does a really top job of acting.
Well, she has a nice she's like simple pretty, you know what I mean? She's not like glamorous pretty or anything. Plus she just has like a likable innocence about her, you know, she's pleasant, you know what I mean? Whereas the other roles I've ever seen her in, she's typically a stone cold bitch, and that's probably a lot of the difference there, you know.
Well, but there seems to be a genuine little spark. I don't know if there was a romance or if it was just,
between the two of them.
She and Shatner definitely have a good little rapport. Like there's one scene where they do a little smile at each other, and you know, you could see a genuine smile between the two of them. So
she has never had anything but glowing things to say about William Shatner. So I think that it's very possible there was a little something going on there. Very, very possible. Is it wrong of me that guy right there always reminded me of my Grandpa Gardner?
The guy who's talking to
one that Kirk's gonna tell to shut up in a minute.
No, he's hilarious. He's starting a really rude joke. I was just like, wow, that's a really risque joke that the guy's leading up to when Kirk tells him to shut up.
The other 3 guys at that table look like the cowboys from Back to the Future 3 that are in the bar. You better run, squirrel! Must have gotten that shirt off from a dead Chinese.
I love when they just have a room full of stock old character actors like this, old bum character actor going and eating their. And I love the look he gives Kirk. He goes, see?
Now, one thing I really, really like about this that I don't think I ever caught as a kid was that the whole philosophy of Star Trek and basically Gene Roddenberry's entire philosophy is quietly laid out in the background of this episode. You're not beat over the head with it. I don't feel like I'm being preached at, but it comes up several times. I mean, this speech is only a small part of it, but it also comes up in the dialogue between Kirk and Edith. And I think this is why he falls for her, because he's finally met a woman that he can see that they connect. You know what I mean? She
says several times, like, we think alike. You know,
right.
I can tell you think like me. You know, I could tell we are. You know. She could tell that he understands what she's saying. Everybody else just looks at her and goes, well, whatever, ditzy broad, you know?
Right.
You know.
Everybody else is focused on their little lives or the problems of the world or whatever, where he's, you know, he sees what she's talking about.
Yeah, he knows she's exactly right. She's right on the button. Yeah. And
I love
that. Was it? Uh-huh. Yeah, I'll have plenty to say about that in the next part. That figures deeply into one thing I noticed about this that I didn't notice originally as a kid is, you know, she's running her mission and stuff, and usually the scene where they come out and they go, oh God, now we got to listen to her, usually they would get like a religious, that was usually what it was.
Right.
It would be a church mission, and you'd have to listen to a sermon during dinner, and that was the price you paid. But I noticed she gave a very secular talk, which is very Star Trek, very Gene Roddenberry too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, this place is a mission. It says mission on it, and So you would think it would be based, and she seems almost like she would be a church lady, but she's not.
Well, she's
really.
billed as Sister
Right.
Edith
Sister.
Keeler in the credits. At the end of the
right.
episode, it says Sister Edith Keeler. So yeah, I wonder if that's a changed premise somewhere, in the production phase.
But even if she's religious, she's not judgmental religious,
right?
Because she's basically like a lot of people are basically doing either not illegal but shifty stuff around her. Kirk and Spock are obviously up to something. She doesn't know if it's good or bad. She saw him met him stealing. That was how she first met him. They were stealing and trespassing, and they're completely vague with her and stuff. And she puts up with a lot of it. She's sort of nonplussed by, of course, during the Depression, there was probably a lot of that going around. Theft and general people having to be a little bit slimy to get by. But yeah, she seems very, very, very progressive for a religious lady of 1930 something in New York City.
I like the interplay between Kirk and Spock in this, and the fact that Spock can really get on Kirk's nerves. And a lot of times Spock seems like he's completely oblivious to the fact that he's getting on Kirk's nerves.
Well, yeah, he's kind of like the Asperger's syndrome guy, who's working on his project in the house, and
Would you
Kirk's
not hold that salami at me quite that way, please, Captain?
I mean, how suspicious is this that Kirk rushes to the door and blocks her off,
right?
While Spock leaps into the corner and throws his hat on. It's just but the lighting in this room is awesome too. All the interior lighting and the classic Star Trek, light right on the lady's face all the time, so it glows with a heavenly aura. Is just always I always think that they don't really do much stuff like that anymore with shows. Give them little stylistic. And don't you get the idea that they've been here weeks, right?
Oh yeah,
and weeks.
Yeah.
Don't you think they'd get some new clothes by now?
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that before, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, because I think Kirk said that he said something about the groceries, about this was like a week's worth of pay or 2 weeks worth or something to that effect. So yeah, they have been there a while. Dun dun dun.
Every time I hear that cue, I know it's just like true.
See, she changes her clothes all the time. He must be ripe.
I know, that's what I'm saying. And this is, I always wonder how we got from them stealing the stuff to her knowing that they stole it.
Kirk told him. Oh, you mean the watchmaking tools?
They steal the tools, and then the next shot is a sort of weird jump cut of her coming down and going, all right, I know you guys stole that. You got through all that. I knew it was you. How... I
wonder if she saw them.
Yeah, but however it is, it's almost like they cut something out, for time or something that we didn't. And most people, if Spock said, "Oh, I'm gonna get him back to him in the morning," and then someone said, "Hey, if Mr. Spock says that, that's what's gonna happen." Most of the time, most people would be like, "Oh yeah, well, fuck you."
She's got the hots for him.
Mm-hmm. The hot pants for Jim Kirk.
Mm-hmm. He's standing around with his shirt unbuttoned to his navel there. So,
yeah, see that grin? That was a nice little grin between the two of them.
I really like that scene.
Where she calls him Captain without ever hearing him referred to as Captain. But then later on she's like, why do you call him Captain? Did you and it's like, well, you've never actually heard him call her Captain. And that's the weird random shot of the radio repair store, just like held for a long time. It's weird. It's almost like it was. I was always thinking they were setting it up that they were going to break in there though to get parts for their tricorder or something. Why they? And there you get that. Now they're walking by it, but.
I really like that part though, where she's trying to place them, and she says, that they don't belong there, and Spock asks her, well, where do you think we do belong? And she nails Spock right away. She says, "You by his side," as if you've always been there and always will. I just there's something about that scene I've always really, really liked.
Yeah, it's great writing.
It is
what it is. But Kirk, talking in the past tense about things happening in the hundreds of years in the future should have been a tip-off. But she thinks he's just being romantic, and I love it. I think the one lone stock shot of New York City, of real New York City.
I think there might have been something cut out there where they were intended to kiss, or maybe it was supposed to lead us to think that they were going to kiss in that part. Beautiful use of the music in this.
Yeah, this was really intense for me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
It's still intense for me now. I was watching this earlier, and Scotty's home from school today. He's sick, and so he was watching it with me. And there was a lot of parts of this where I was sitting there getting like teary-eyed and tried to fake it. I didn't want to sit there and have him catch the old man bawling watching Star Trek, But there's a lot of emotion in this episode. There really is. This one tugs at the heartstrings for me. So I feel bad for Kirk in this one.
Well, they're very. I mean, they really have to. I mean, sell the whole Kirk falling in love in a short amount of time.
Right.
A lot happens in this. They really cram a lot of stuff into this episode, into the 40-some minutes that that it takes to tell this story. They get a lot of, they get a whole subplot, the whole plot on the planet and
that's new.
McCoy's story.
That shot of the screen just before the fire broke out right there, that was new for
where
the
it goes all kind of Matrixy.
Yeah. See, you're right, and that's even from being a kid, that was one of the things I liked about this episode, and one of the reasons I think it is a truly standout episode of the series is it moves, man. I mean, it really moves. It, like you say, it gets enough in here that this could be a 2-hour movie.
Yes.
Condensed into a 50-minute episode. It really moves. But it never feels rushed either, and I like that. It gives you exactly what you need to tell the story, and there's not a whole lot of room for fluff.
Mm-mm. But it still throws in a lot of. I mean, you've got your general story, then you've got just little touches off to the side of that where they had fun with the the location and time and it being the 30s and the Depression, where they could have colorful bums being colorful and evaporating themselves, vaporizing themselves. Kirk's really trying too hard with that cowlick, though.
I like how his voice kind of catches when he says the word die. He goes, depending on whether she lives or dies. And he kind of just gets hung up on that word. I like that part. See, I think Shatner takes way too much crap about his acting style and everything. I think he really is an extraordinary actor, and I think this is one of the episodes where he really proves that.
Well, the fact that everybody knows his tics and mannerisms is a testament to what a great actor he is. Otherwise, he would just be, there's a lot of just sort of hey, cheesy lead guy actors out there like your Robert Culps or, stuff like that who would be in TV shows and stuff, but Kirk is, Shatner's stood the test of time and You know, and you notice most of the people who like make fun of or can do impressions of Shatner probably are doing it because they've watched 8 million episodes of Star Trek over and over again. So, you know, yeah, this is one of those. This is one of the times where he, you know, sorry, it's back to the fun.
I cannot tell you the number of times that I'd be out with Randy somewhere in the middle of the friggin' night in some quiet little hamlet like Black River where it's like 4 o'clock in the morning and he would just start doing this. Murderers! Assassins! He used to do this too. He'd chase you sometimes. He'd go, don't run. Don't run. I won't kill you.
I love that line. Don't run. I won't kill you. I'm going to use that more often. That should be just how I greet everybody from now on.
Now, that guy that McCoy is chasing, he's the same guy that we saw in A Piece of the Action, the one that got beamed in, and then he goes, "Mother," or something like that, remember?
Oh, that's right.
Pursuit? Yeah, it's the same guy.
Yeah, one of the same, that crowd of character actors. And I'm just going to apologize to everybody. I don't know if you're hearing it, Scott, but somebody's persistently trying to call me, and I can't turn off the sound of my Skype. So every once in a while, you guys will hear a bloop, bloop. Don't worry, I'm hanging up on him.
A little while ago, and that probably made it into the episode. I hate that, too. Dogs barking in episodes makes me nuts. So when it's my dog...
I enjoy it.
I hate that. It's so unprofessional.
I'm a pet lover, and I don't. Yeah, well, as soon as we start getting paid, then I'll worry about being professional. I love hearing people's pets in the background.
We got paid for this one. We got paid for this one.
Well, I mean, yeah, profit pay, but when the food when my roof and food on the table is podcast money, then I'll shoot the dog. But until then. McCoy lingers a little bit too much on that guy, like
his midsection.
I love it. Randy used to do this too, where he'd grab your cranium and be just like,
"Yeah, I know."
There's something just creepy about somebody grabbing the back of your head like a basketball,
especially some bum in the 30s. I mean, he's got to have just a lovely stuff going on his scalp,
And I mean, look, he didn't get the dry clean treatment when he went through the Guardian. Look at that scurf on his McCoy shirt. He's got like
he wasn't impressed when he came.
No, he's got like that nasty like sweat stains and stuff. This is some really good acting, though.
It is. I never noticed his pinky ring until this episode, too.
Sew them up like garments. That's a great line.
Like his quivering lip. Ed Norton?
It's a little heshy. Hessian.
It's an electric shaver.
It's a fancy heater. I'm going to take this to Krakow.
What does this
I love this.
do? Yeah, I know.
Should I put it in my mouth? It is. It's like a monkey playing with a shotgun. Oh, the sun's coming up.
Zip.
That freaked me out as a kid. That was just like, oh shit. Now this shot of the outside
back to the
of the
Enterprise at the end of the episode, and everybody's monkeys or something. That's what should have happened. Because that
shot of the outside of their boarding house looks exactly like the Led Zeppelin Physical Graffiti album cover. I'm wondering if it's the same hotel in New York City or something. If it's some famous, like, hotel or boarding house in New York City that they use, because it's like almost the same colors and everything. I love how their computer keeps getting bigger and bigger and spreading out around the apartment. That's great. That's really how it would be. It's kind of cool.
Looking at him like, who is this scurvy freak? There's a dude with the purple pants again.
Yeah, I know. Just
Look like John Cleese walking by there.
Yeah.
He should have been doing a funny walk.
the silly walk. That patchy face is just.
He should have clubbed somebody with that chair. I always like that, where Spock walks in and just moment she takes McCoy out of the room. And I love little ironic things like that.
Well, it starts getting that feel of a timepiece, time and fate all
coalescing,
everything and right now everything's just a little bit out of sync, and it's about to sync up, Oh, I forgot to mention there was another part earlier where Kirk was out walking, or no, maybe it's coming up, but there's another scene where Kirk like pulls her out from in front of a car.
Right.
It's very, very strange. And with this lighting, you can also see a little bit of the green to Spock.
Yeah, I'm noticing watching this, because earlier we watched this in the living room. I'm now watching it on the computer. Spock looks very, very green to me, whereas on TV he didn't really.
Because when the picture's condensed down, because it's just subtle. It's like they put a green gel on a light.
Right.
The light that's on Spock or something, and yeah, the interior, I can't say enough about the interior lighting and the color of this. They just got it to look and feel differently. It's very television lighting.
Yeah.
But it really makes it feel like that time period, and they're making it feel like the 30s with just the barest use of sets and sound stages, or not sound stages, but backlots.
Look at all the stuff behind Kirk right there, where it looks like that's the stuff that Spock galvanized all the parts from. I don't think I've ever really noticed that before.
It's like a pile of radios that he's just gutted and thrown the shells of them over in the corner.
I love that.
Yeah.
Dun 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 dun.
See, nobody does that anymore. Wheel the camera right up into someone's face. They just zoom these days. This is some nice. This is some really nice acting in this part. In this part, and when he finally like comes out of it. Your face is glowing.
You can see your panty lines in the enhanced version. I like that.
The enhanced version. See, McCoy's got smoker's teeth too.
He's got zombie face is what he's got.
I know. But you could now I totally see him and Leonard Nimoy enjoying a butt between scenes, That's different though than George Takei enjoying a butt between scenes. Oh, zing! Zing!
I think Shatner enjoyed her butt between scenes.
Yeah, there was lots of butt enjoying happening on Star Trek back in the day. Could you blame him? You can't blame him.
She's cute. She really is.
I think Shatner was married and had like 2 kids during this time though. So, yeah. But either way. Yeah, I'm just gonna rest my eyes for a little while. Yeah, none of this is real.
I know he should puke at least once in this scene. He reaches up and grabs her ass as she turns to walk away. She's got a nasty habit of just bringing strange men home.
I know, and just completely trusting them. Not just strange men, but really strange,
really strange alien men. Yes,
that are acting very suspiciously. Hoo-ya! It's a great scene, though. I mean, he's saying nothing. He's not really doing much anything, but just a great look on his face. And he's just thinking, I might have bought myself a few more moments, or I might have
like
just
where he
destroyed
comes walking down, leaning on the wall like that. Just, yeah.
I might have just like destroyed the Enterprise for a kiss, basically, right there. Which also gives the impression that no matter what, Fate is just trying to kill Edith Keeler. You know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in the. Basically, it seems like if she was gonna live, probably it would have had to have been McCoy that saved her. Because he's done it once so far.
I like Spock in a big green felt jacket. There's something about
it fits perfectly.
Well, he probably bought that.
Yeah, but why buy expensively? I like how he's just sort of like, yeah, paper. But dude, if I was like traveled through time and someone handed me a newspaper, I'd be like, whoa, let's see this. You know, that it would be like fascinating. Especially if it was a newspaper from 300 years in the past, you know.
Let me go over a bank account, make sure I got a good interest rate. Yeah, here we go.
But he thinks he's hallucinating. Right now he's thinking, okay, well, I'm hallucinating, but at least there's a hot chick in here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying that, because you can tell he's starting to warm up to her, too. And she's also not entirely not interested either. The little vixen.
She looks very young. In this scene, she does anyway. I'm wondering. I wonder how old she actually was at the time.
I'm betting like around 25, 26. Maybe somewhere around there. 28, maybe at the oldest. I'm thinking that they actually like did her hair and stuff and dressed her to make her look a little bit older. Now I think he grabs her out from in front of a car here too. Yep. See?
Yep.
So there's twice that Kirk has willingly destroyed the universe. just so he could be with his lady. Yeah, this part, for, you know, I mean, there's been a million things like this where like the fate plays out, you know, every little line of dialogue and every little motion in this is like, you know, dum 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 dum, fate playing out.
Oh. Just the look on Shatner's face gets me every time.
Well, the way he even uses his whole body in hunched pain. Get off me.
And then the way he squeezes his fist right there. Yeah, that's a great piece of acting. It hits me hard every time I watch this.
Now here's what, did they change back into their clothes to come back through?
And his is all laundered and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk's not happy. Now,
Let a smile be your umbrella.
I've heard that this line here where he says, "Let's get the hell out of here," that this is the first time this was said on TV. Is that really true?
I think so. It might have been. It was either that, or it might have been the only like quote unquote curse word on Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was a pretty, I think they got away with it. And this is something that's interesting too, written by Harlan Ellison. I thought that they had I thought they had story by Harlan Ellison before, was how it was presented before. Maybe it's changed for this edition of it.
That is a powerful episode.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Well,
now I just want to see what picture. I can't remember. Does this one end with? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I don't. Now that you mentioned it, I don't think I watched it through the.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. I think I cut it off as soon as it was. So we got to see now.
It's all. Oh, there's the Gorn. Never mind. I was gonna say it's all City on the Edge of Forever. No, but I mean,
yeah, there was a Gorn.
Yeah, I said there's a Gorn. There's some just random map painting set. Playground.
It's Vina. Yeah. Okay.
But
I never liked the ones with Vina as much as the ones with is it Baylock or Blaylock? I always get that confused. Because there's Baylock the alien and then what's her name? Janine or whatever, Blaylock from Enterprise, I think. I think that's how it is, but I always get the two confused. I don't know. Anyway,
well, this one, I think it was the Hugo Award.
Yes, it won the 1968 International Hugo Award. Yeah, I had a note on that as well.
That was for the TV show.
Right.
But the script of it won the Writers Guild of America Award for Best Teleplay that year. So both versions of the original Harlan Ellison version of it and the aired version both won big awards for being awesome. And now I can finally talk about all the differences between and I have to say, I don't know if we mentioned this on air when we were talking earlier before, but you said something to me about how you really liked Harlan Ellison and stuff, but you really liked how this episode ended up.
I like it the way it stands, and everything
stands.
I haven't read the book that you're referencing, and I have never read the original screenplay or anything like that. But everything I've ever heard about it leads me to believe that it would be a very, very different episode, and I don't think I would like it as much. Whether it would still be as good, or even better, or just different, I don't know, but.
Here's the thing. I agree with you. I like it as it stands. I'm usually the kind of guy who's like, hey, when you have a genius like Harlan Ellison, don't fuck with his vision.
Right.
I'm usually of that opinion. But in this case, a lot of the really good dialogue in this, and a lot of the really good moments in this are different. Were something that were added, and there were a lot of other writers who put some work. I mean, DC Fontana did some rewriting on this, and at the end of the book, there's a whole list of a lot of the writers who worked on it, sort of pipe in, and a lot of the actors and stuff from the show. Peter David even pipes in on the whole controversy of it. But the gist of the book that I read, that Harlan Ellison wasn't so much pissed off that they changed his script. It was how Gene Roddenberry described the early versions of the script that didn't make it onto TV. Because Gene Roddenberry would describe it as, well, Harlan Ellison, we got the script and Harlan Ellison had Scotty dealing drugs, and that just doesn't work for Star Trek, and we had to change that, and basically it was just crazy. Harlan had Scotty selling drugs to push a social message, an anti-drug social message or something like that. And the fact of the matter was, in the original script, Scotty never sold any. Scotty wasn't even in it. There was a character who was sort of selling drugs, but it was different. He was sort of getting people hooked on drugs in order to exploit them. So it was different. And Harlan Ellison would call up Gene Roddenberry every time that he would say that and say, "Can you please stop saying that Scotty was dealing drugs? That's wrong." And Gene Roddenberry would go, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I totally got that wrong," and then he just did it for 25 years, sending Harlan Ellison into a frothing fury. And what was really okay, so I guess maybe to start it all out, maybe I should discuss the big differences in the Harlan Ellison script and the show we just saw.
Mm-hmm.
Although basically the basic gist of everything, the basic soul of the story would have been the same. It just wouldn't have had the McCoy element of it. It had another character sort of as the character of McCoy. The drug dealer character was sort of the McCoy of the whole thing. And there's like 3 versions of it here, but the one that won the award, it starts out with these 2 guys, and one guy's selling him these things called they're singing crystals, and they're these sort of blobby jelly-like glowing crystals that when you eat them, you know, you hear some sort of music that's, you know, it's basically, you know, an analogy for taking, you know, hard drugs.
Right.
But, you know, you take one of them and you're hopelessly addicted. And what this guy's been doing is he's got either a transporter engineer or some guy basically, you know, hooked on these things, and he's using that guy to let him go down onto the planets when they go to a new planet, and the guy goes down and trades these drugs for stuff on the planet and has been keeping it to sell later. You know, he's just sort of profiteering off this. And so the guy who's on the drugs goes up onto the bridge when and it's sort of like in this, they're experiencing the time distortion, and he zones out. He zones out to where he doesn't even know where he is and what's going on. And Spock is like, "What the hell are you doing? You know, pay attention. You're on the bridge. Are you okay? Do you need to go to sick bay?" And he decides, "I'm done with these drugs. I'm gonna turn." And he goes down and tells the guy, "I'm turning you in. You know, I'm done with this. I'm turning you in." And the guy's like, "No, fuck you," and kills him. And then it's like they chase him, and he gets his way. He shoots his way into the transporter room and transports down onto the planet. So they go down after him, and they're tracking him. And, you know, Harlan Ellison, basically, a lot of the stuff that got switched because Harlan Ellison was like, they beam down onto a planet, and then they see, you know, way off in the distance, a gigantic city, you know, and they walk for hours till they get to the city. And there was the Guardians of Forever that they finally meet. And they're these big sort of, you know, like 20-foot tall semi-stone guys.
Yeah.
That, you know, with big beards and you know, they, you know, like their mouths only moved, and, you know, and it's basically the same story from there, where you know, that guy sees his chance and escapes through the portal, and then they go back and they determine that even though this guy's a crazed asshole, he's gonna save Edith Keeler, you know, destroy the universe. But what happens in Harlan Ellison's is when he jumps through, they go back up to the Enterprise, but the Enterprise is like a pirate ship with all this different crew and it's all fucked up, and, you know, like a pirate ship. It's all dirty, like a Klingon ship, you know, that you would see in the future, you know. And they get locked in the transporter room, and they have Janice Rand and Uhura fighting off with phasers the pirates while they're down trying to fix time. And so the Edith Keeler story is pretty much the same. You know, the whole story in the 30s is pretty much as it stands without McCoy, and pretty much close to the same dialogue. And at the end, when Edith is killed and they bring the guy back through, the Guardian, he tries to jump through again. He breaks off and jumps back into the Guardian, but he jumps back in to when the Guardian's showing the sun forming. And then the Guardian, just to be a dick, puts the guy on a loop, so the guy keeps appearing in the sun and burning up, and then hopping back in time. So he's just sort of in hell forever, literally, just sort of. And in the earliest version, they catch the guy. They catch the guy after he kills the guy on the Enterprise, and they're taking him down to the planet to execute him. And I was reading that, and I'm like, oh, there's no way that Kirk and crew, that Roddenberry's going to let Kirk and crew carry out an execution on the planet, even for a murder. You can't. Yeah, not, so
it's some of those elements that made me wonder,
was in the first treatment of it. That was in the first, 3-page thing, and then Roddenberry was like, no, we don't do executions, and so then it was gone, the next one. But it's funny seeing that evolution, and the giant guardians kept getting small. They kept telling him, you got to shave more stuff off because you got to, he had big crowd scenes and stuff of 30 or 40 extras, and they kept, shaving down everything into a lower and lower budget, which is TV, and you could tell he sort of grudgingly went along with that, But what the gist of this book is he's pissed off at Roddenberry for saying, Harlan Ellison wrote a show that we couldn't make. It was too expensive, and he had Scotty dealing drugs. When, in fact, when you read the script, that's not true. It might have been a little more expensive than what they made to make, but he adjusted it down. You could see in each rewrite that he was taking the crowd scenes down or jiggering something a little different so that you could do it without having it happen outside with cars going by and stuff. And he was mostly upset. He liked the character. He liked the two characters, the guy who was drug addicted and the drug dealer. He liked that, that there were. He liked that there were bad people in Star Trek universe, and he goes off a lot about how Gene Roddenberry wanted everybody to be perfect and squeaky clean. That nobody had any personal problems with each other, and nobody did it. There wouldn't be a drug dealer on the Enterprise because humanity had gone beyond, being evil to each other. And Harlan Ellison doesn't buy that at all. I don't buy that at all either. But upon watching this, and a lot of the best lines of dialogue and best moments on it were stuff that somebody else added onto it. I have to say. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting to hear Harlan Ellison's perspective on Gene Roddenberry, because he's one of those people who seems to be of the opinion that Roddenberry was kind of holding Star Trek back. And, here's another major difference is Edith Keeler's speech was way less a spelling out of the Roddenberry. You see, Harlan Ellison said exactly what you said, Scott. He said, her speech became, his philosophy, his view of what the universe would be then, or what he wanted it to be. And Harlan Ellison wanted her to be progressive, but not like there'll be men flying from planet to planet and, we will get rid of prejudice and all that. He didn't want it to be that. He was very upset. He basically says, Roddenberry's one of those people who will have everybody do all the work, and then he stamps his name on it and puts his mark on it at the end. And I'd just like to say that's true, but that's what TV producers do. He's a TV producer, and he was a very successful TV producer. So that's what you do. You sort of take over stuff and make sure you get your name on it. And with Harlan Ellison, that stuff rankles him. And the first 50 pages of this book is an just unchecked ranting and raving, and I don't want to speak ill of the dead with Gene Roddenberry, but
right,
this is what I have to say. And while it doesn't tarnish Gene Roddenberry, it's also good to read this stuff to get a little perspective on it, on someone who's like, look, this guy was not the genius, mastermind of Star Trek that everybody pictures him to be. He was a really smart guy, and he was, but he was also not, completely driven by like this humanistic urge that a lot of people picture him as. He was a businessman, and he was a very savvy businessman. He wasn't like, I'm going to create a utopian world or anything. He was about, I'm going to make Gene Roddenberry rich and make sure that Gene Roddenberry's name is always associated with Star Trek, which it should be.
Right.
So, but it's really funny. Harlan Ellison told a really funny story about William Shatner. It's funny. He doesn't seem to get along with Shatner, but he gets along with Nimoy a little bit, and gets along with Walter Koenig really well. They're really good buddies. But when he first was meeting all the Star Trek people, Shatner was like, "Hey, can I come over to your place and read the script?" And Shatner rode up on a motorcycle and like read the script, and Harlan Ellison realized that Shatner was going through with a pencil and counting how many lines he had and be like, "Do you think I could get some more lines?" And Shatner told this whole story about the whole incident that's completely different, that makes Shatner sound like really cool. And it's really funny. He's like, "No, basically he came over to my house to find out how many lines he had in the episode to make sure he had enough lines." And with the stories that have come out in the years since then, I have to assume that that's true, because it sounds like Shatner does that. He breaks his scripts down into, numbers, number of lines. Who's got the more, what do you mean Spock's got more lines than me? I'm the captain. So that was very funny to me.
I don't know. I mean, I've read a lot of his stories, Harlan Ellison's stories over the years, and I respect him. I respect his work. But the guy himself, everything I've ever seen him in, when he opens his mouth, he just comes across as the most pretentious asshole I've ever listened to.
That's what endears him to me, because I hate pretentious assholes too. I hate them. But there's a certain breed of pretentious asshole that can back it up with their, but I mean, a lot of this pretentious ass stuff, like, I don't like it when his writing gets pretentious, but when he's like ranting and raving and frothing at the mouth and being a real bastard, it cracks me up, because a lot of it's the pain. He says a lot of things that a lot of people won't say, Right. And you have to put up with that. You have to I mean, it must be like his wife must embody, define the words long suffering. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It must be tough to be his wife and stuff like that. But I love to go to YouTube and watch, videos of him ranting and raving and being, and I mean, half the stuff he says I totally disagree with. When you start getting into like copyright stuff and file sharing and stuff like that, you and I would have big problems, and he would have big problems with us too, with about those issues. But when I hear his points, he makes good points on it, but it hurts to hear it, But at the same time, I respect that. I respect somebody who's just willing to not censor their, the fact that he is a pretentious little bastard. He's a super intelligent, pretentious, smart ass asshole, and he's sort of embraced it. He's sort of like, all right, well, I'll live with my wife alone in my house, and the few people who can put up with me I'll hang around with them, and I'll go out in public every once in a while and get everybody pissed off because when I open my mouth. And yeah, I just love. But if it was a different person, I'd want to club them to death like a baby seal. That reminds me, I got some baby seals I got to club.
See, that's kind of the thing with him, is that that's every time I listen to him, that's what I walk away going, God, he's just somebody I'd just love to beat the shit out of, because he's incredibly annoying in that smug, smarmy.
Smug,
yeah.
Yes, smug is definitely a key word when you're talking about Harlan Ellison. But smug, pretentious, but goddamn, man, he he really did a good job on the new Twilight Zone. You know, it was authentic, and like his stories, he's written some he wrote the best episode of Star Trek, and I just love reading his books, especially his books that are sheer nonfiction. There was one I got at Dragon Con that was just, you know, a collection of his movie criticism, and it was awesome. There were a lot of, you know, especially, and a lot of the stuff he had to say about the Star Trek movies. But that's what I loved about it, is that was during the first season of Star Trek, he already got alienated from Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry, or, you know, he alienated himself to where he was like, fuck those guys. But, you know, they called him back for the motion picture to try to get some advice from him, and, you know, he continued on talking about the Star Trek franchise and the movies and stuff, and I thought he was very fair about it. You know, he didn't just automatically start trashing stuff because of his, you know, bad feelings towards Roddenberry and stuff. He looked at the movies very, very objectively for him. You know, there's still strong opinions on it, but, you know, I mean, I really disagreed with a lot of what he said about the motion picture, but then again, he's right with us on Star Trek 3. You know, so I love people like that, or I hate him, but he's one of the ones that I love, of the love 'em or hate 'ems. And I totally understand the people who hate Harlan Ellison.
I don't hate him. I'm not a fan, I guess, is the biggest thing for me. It's that I
totally understand the people who hate him. Even if you don't.
This body of work, I just, you know, like I say, every time I've ever seen him speak, it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's like, God, I just can't stand this guy. So, yeah. But, well, this episode took a dark turn that I did not foresee.
It's because we're talking about Harlan Ellison.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never a nice, light conversation about Harlan Ellison, I guess.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of the I guess you would say, like, the legacy of this episode, as far as some things, you know, the elements of it and stuff like that. But I say let's take a quick break first, because I don't know about you, but I've got a full bladder at this point and wouldn't mind grabbing a snack. So why don't we do that? We can play a promo or two and come back and wrap the episode up. Does that work?
Okay, sounds good to me.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Hey kids, comics!
Hey Michael!
Yes?
We have to record a promo for our podcast.
I've got one. Read our podcast.
Read our podcast. You do know this is an audio medium?
Watch our podcast.
But you can watch podcasts, but not ours, because let's face it, we've got faces for radio.
No, wait, I've got it. Give me a second, right? What? Just listen to our podcast.
Listen to our podcast. Snap it. It's short, sweet. I'm liking it. It's good. It's great. Not exactly telling people what our podcast's about, though, is it?
We read comics.
We read comics. That's true. That's good. Liking it. Liking this pitch. Carry on.
Right. We talk about comics.
We do. We talk about comics. We read comics, and then we talk about them, because we can't talk about them before we read them. Excellent. Keep going.
And then
we sing.
Badly.
Yes, well, badly is purely subjective, but how many other comic book podcasts do you know where people sing?
Hey Kids Comics!
Every Thursday at apleyland.podomatic.com.
Why, hello there, lovely ladies. May I just say that you look quite beautiful in your matching Slave Leia metal bikinis? You have permission to come aboard my den of nerd erotica. Some people would call it my mom's garage. I call it 10.1 forward. Can I interest you in a death stick? Nope. I was just kidding. Have a shot of trying it. Once you get loosened up, we can play a friendly game of strip fizzbin. Let me loosen that strap.
Hey suckers, Maury Clawhammer here, okay? You want your freaking Star Wars? I got your Star Wars right here! What about the Star Trek? You like that shit too, right? Right? That's what I thought. Well, we got that and we got more freaking comics than you can read in your entire miserable goddamn life. Hey, there's even a girl who talks about unicorns and goddamn Harry Potter and them goddamn Oriental cartoons with the big eyes. So you get your ass over to the Two True Freaks podcast at twotruefreaks.libsyn.com. That's spelled Libsyn, alright? All right? Good. You can get there on the internets and choose from hundreds of quality Two True Freaks podcasts. And would it kill you to buy a goddamn t-shirt? Remember, Two True Freaks, Two True Freaks, Two True Freaks, Two True Freaks.
Whoa, we're back. How do you like that?
No,
Just sort of like I
wonderful.
Came flying into the room.
So like you're about to tip over in your chair.
Not in this new chair. This new chair is pretty solid to the ground. But yeah. So I guess we'll sort of finish up our thoughts here on City on the Edge of Forever.
Well, I wanted to pose a question to you and to the listening audience in regards to this episode. Because I've thought a lot about this over the years, and I've kind of come to several different conclusions myself. But basically, it comes down to this: did Edith Keeler have to die? I mean, I know within the context of the story, Spock lays it out that there's basically two choices. You know, that she has to die the way that she was, originally fated to die. So that the timeline can continue the way that it always had. Or, she could be saved and, it's going to muck everything up and Hitler's going to conquer the world and millions of people that, didn't die before would die. I'm thinking, you're dealing with time travel here. There are other options. There are other factors at play and other things that, could be done. As we would see years and years later in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, I mean, Kirk actually plucks a woman out of time and takes him with her. Could not have something similar have been done with Edith Keeler? Or, conversely, couldn't Kirk have decided to stay with her? Now, granted, that places him as a man out of time, in the 30s, and God only knows what direction all that could play out to. That could have dire consequences as well. But at the very least, literally just pluck her right out of time. Declare his love for her and that whole thing and try to gain her trust and maybe even just lay the situation out to her. Look, this is how it is. It's this or the grave, So
well, I would say that she possibly didn't have to die, but I think Kirk would have had to take it. I don't think Kirk could ever, no matter how in love he was with any women, is ever going to leave the Enterprise. Until they pry it from his cold dead hands or blow it up over a planet. But
well, that kind of begs into my next question, which is where, and granted, when people fall in love and it's all at that, doughy-eyed phase of a romantic relationship, you're not really thinking about the future, so to speak. But this is Kirk we're talking about Kirk. So
right,
where
exactly.
do you think this was going in his mind? I mean, he had to be thinking about at least some of the factors here that, here he's a time-displaced person from centuries in the future. How the hell did he expect this was going to play out?
He's torturing himself. He was being self-indulgent is what he was was doing. He was really, I've always figured the Guardian says when everything's put back in order, they'll be returned. Mm-hmm. So I figured, why didn't Kirk try to sit her down and do what you did and say, look, in the future there's going to be a dictator. I mean, most people would not believe that, but she might believe it. She was portrayed as being different. And if he could get her to in her mind be like, okay, I'm not going to pursue this pacifism and World War II has to start, then wouldn't the Guardian be like, everything's back to normal, I mean, if she made the conscious decision not to do it, wouldn't that change time back to normal,
Right. Well, plus, this is not a Kyle Reese situation where he's not got a shred of proof to back up his story. He's got a walking, talking extraterrestrial as his best friend. And
they could show her a computer.
And they have the computer, exactly, yes. They have the tricorder, which he could actually show her some of this stuff. So, I think that's, a big compelling thing right there. It just occurs to me that I think this is another reason why I really love this episode and never ever consciously realized it before, is that, you and I, we joke a lot about it, and we love to point it out, and it's one of the things that really endears Kirk to us, is that he's a complete womanizer. But one of the reasons I think I truly love this and never consciously realized it before is that I don't think this is one of those instances at all. I think he truly loved her. He tells Spock, I'm in love with her. Right.
I think I'm in love with Edith Keeler, which is a really weird thing to say to Spock. You're talking about an emotion, and he's telling Spock that, and he knows that that's a really bad thing for him to be doing, but
right.
He just sort of states it as a fact, and.
But my point being that this wasn't going to be an instance where as soon as he got in her pants, well, that's done, on to the next adventure. You know what I mean?
No, he was really into it. You could see their minds, whereas usually you can see Kirk like going, well, hello. Mm-hmm. Aren't you a sight for sore eyes? And in this one, he's more just like, hey, this woman's got something going. And you can tell by the way they interact that they have a rapport. There's some, it all falls into the whole fate aspect of the story. That maybe Kirk and her were meant to meet each other but that kind of thing is only good for about 10 seconds. And it might not have been, that might have been the perfect relationship for Kirk to have the perfect real, romantic relationship. And I'm not talking in a real life. I'm talking in the fake world of a weekly TV series.
Right.
Is you have Kirk have his whole love of his life, romance of all time, and then she gets killed, 2 days later, and then it's over. And then you have an excuse for him. Because isn't that the James Bond thing? He had a wife.
I was just going to say, who that makes him, right? It makes him James Bond. Yeah. Exactly. That is.
He had a wife, and he was very happy. The wife's dead. Now he can sleep with every woman in the world because he's never going to fall in love with another one like that.
He's never going to allow himself to be hurt again. See, I was going to actually ask you if you think that might be why he is kind of different after this episode as far as his relationships with women. We never really see him fall for one woman again. And I know somebody's probably going to bring up Miramani, but I think even that, there's extenuating circumstances. For one, he's not really himself. He's right. He's got this alternate persona, of Kirok and all that. But even there, I don't think he fell for Miramani because she intellectually stimulated him. I think that he just
was
had
the hottest game in town.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
He's Kirk, and he's like, no. Whoa, Miramonte.
But
yes,
I really think that Edith, was the one for Kirk, and I think that's why it makes this episode that much more tragic, and why I really feel for him. And I think it's interesting that while that whole dynamic has been hinted at and touched upon a little bit in some of the comics and novels and stuff like that, it's never really been explored. And I actually kind of like that, because it's almost like it's sacred ground that people don't want to mess with too much. But knowing what we know now of where things have gone with Star Trek, I think if you could ever go back and do one of those, this is the way, Kirk should have ended up type of deals, I kind of would like to have seen him somehow or other try to wind up with Edith, go back and try to save her or something like that.
Well, isn't that part of, doesn't it have something to do with the Mind Sifter? Or doesn't Edith Keeler come into that? And I remember a conversation.
She's not actually in it, but that was.
He's trying to find her. He's trying to figure out some way of hooking up with her, and I remember talking to you. I don't know if it was on the show or off the show, and just one of our. It seems to me it maybe had been when I was on one of my visits to you, and we were talking about Generations.
Right.
And I think I'm pretty sure it was you who were saying, don't you think it should have been Edith Keeler, who Kirk would have been in the whatchamacallit there, the Matrix Void thing there.
Absolutely.
What the hell was the name of it? What the hell was the name of that?
Nexus.
The Nexus.
Yeah.
That it should have probably been Edith Keeler in the Nexus with him. And that would have been really interesting if you went to the Nexus and Kirk was living in the 30s with Edith Keeler.
Yeah.
Which would make sense, you know? A simpler life. And, you know, and you know, it's really funny because when you think about it's Star Trek II where McCoy gives Kirk the glasses, the antique glasses, and you start getting, you know, they start setting up the thing of that Kirk likes antiques and old stuff.
Right.
And that might have something to do with his visit to the 30s,
Exactly.
you know? And yeah, that would have been great if he was in the Nexus and he came out and he was running the mission with Edith Keeler. That would have been awesome.
Because I know in the novelization of that book of Generations, he goes through at least a couple of choices before, you know, choices of women before he settles on whatever, Antonia or whoever it was in the movie.
Just some random,
Well, I know one of them was Carol Marcus, the mother of his son. I cannot remember for the life of me if Edith was one of them or not. I don't think it was, but I think that would have been a logical choice. Plus,
I never saw Carol Marcus as a viable mate for Kirk. It seemed like they had a fling and the baby came out of it, and she was just like, "Fuck it, I'm keeping the baby," but you know, I don't want.
Away.
Neither of them seemed like they were really into having any kind of real relationship.
The way I always read it was that she wasn't into him, and he regretted it because he was into her. That's how I always read that in Star Trek II. Was that he regretted how things went, and she really didn't, because, you know, they had their thing and that was it, and she had her career and all that, and wasn't really all that into him. And just the way I read Kirk and Shatner in that movie, that's what I pull out of it, was that there's a regret there. And maybe it's just purely the child at that point. Maybe it's just an old man looking, you know, and he even says it himself in the movie, his life that could have been.
Right,
it's come to regret, you know, that he didn't go that path, kind of thing. But I don't know. I mean, but as far as, like, you know, of all the women in Star Trek that we saw Kirk, you know, dally with, and there were a good number of them, there's not one relationship that plays like this one. Not one.
No, he doesn't do the grab her and do the lip mash that he usually does, the aggressive, like, I am the caveman claiming my bride by the hair that he usually does. She kisses him.
Oh, he's totally
he's being the gentleman.
Awkward, I would say gentleman, but also he seems like kind of the awkward schoolboy in this one. He's
bowled over by her.
Exactly.
And I mean, and when he catches her and he's freaking out because he just caught her, and, you know, he might have just destroyed his ship and stuff, and she smooches him, and he's just like, thanks, ma'am, thanks, you know, and he gets a goofy grin on his face, and no. I used to work with a kid who was like the awkward teenager. He was about your son Scotty's age, and I used to years ago would work with this kid, and you know, some girl would be around him, and she'd obviously like him, and you'd be like, dude, don't you notice she's really into no But it's cool to see Kirk get taken off guard like that, you know, to get Kirk really gets a wind knocked out of his sails in this episode, you know, more than ever in any other, you know, I mean, even more so than the Enterprise getting blown up. The only other thing that takes him down more than this is when Spock dies. I think Edith Keeler dying and Spock dying are like just these two, you know, incredibly standout moments in Kirk's life. You know, I think those are the moments where, you know, Kirk has lost the two most important people in his life. you know, at one point. I mean, he's regained Spock. And in the Star Trek world, he could have probably regained Edith Keeler too, but you know.
Well, I'm just thinking that, you know, granted, I don't have the same feelings about Generations that most other Star Trek fans do. Most other Star Trek fans, to my
really don't like
understanding, really, really, really hate that movie. I don't. I find a lot to like in that movie. And, you know, while I acknowledge the flaws, it doesn't ruin the movie for me. I can still find a lot to enjoy in the movie, just if nothing else, as a fun popcorn muncher. And it's kind of the Kirk of old, where he's really there just to be ass-kicking Kirk. I like that. But imagine for a moment in that scene where Picard comes walking down into the clearing and finds Kirk chopping wood. What if sitting like in a chair right there watching him or something was Joan Collins, like present day Joan Collins playing his wife Edith Keeler in the Nexus? And I think it would completely change the tone of that scene, and that might be a big enough geek bone thrown to, you know, to the fans.
It would add a lot of resonance to it.
Hell yeah,
it would make his decision to leave the Nexus all that more incredible.
And
it would all that more. Yeah,
it would give Shatner a chance to truly act in that movie too. I mean, not that he doesn't. I'm just saying, but it would.
He the thing about that movie is he was just sort of in part of it. So
he was the guest star.
He was the guest star, and he came off as a guest star.
Exactly.
He wasn't fully engaged.
Right.
You know, these guys had been doing a weekly show together. They were all, you know, he was a guest there.
He was
literally,
star,
you know, he's like the king of Star Trek, but it's a whole different country full of people. And it comes off as that, you know, he hits his Kirk beats as you know, as much as he can, and then he goes out at the end, but
imagine Kirk having to give up Edith Keeler for a second time. You know, imagine that for a moment, and Shatner really bringing the Shatner to that scene. That could have taken a movie that I think is it's okay at best, and could have made it just wow, that's phenomenal. You know, that's a hell of a Kirk movie. You know, it could have made that movie. It really could have, and it's a shame that they weren't able to do something like that. And see, you wouldn't even have to do any sort of screwing around or recasting or anything. They totally could have got present day Joan Collins, because of the nature of that Nexus thing. It would have completely worked.
Yeah. And Joe, you know, what's really funny is reading about this. Joan Collins was sort of like, Harlan Ellison didn't have nice things to say about Joan Collins either, as for what she said about the thing, because whenever she talks about the show, like in her autobiography, she was like, I was in an episode of Star Trek where I had to die because my character became a Nazi or was a Nazi or something like that. And it's like, no, your character was a pacifist that allowed Hitler. You know, she got it all confused to where her character became Hitler or somehow, you know, endorsed Hitler or something. And Harlan Ellison was like, no, I don't think she understood her role on that show that much. But I'm sure Joan Collins would have been. I'm sure they could have gotten her to be in a Star Trek movie.
They got her for the last DVD set that just came out. She's on there talking with Shatner.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's at least one documentary on there where I can't remember what the subject is. It's either this episode or just Kirk's conquest in general or something to that effect.
The Ladies of Kirk.
The Ladies of Kirk. Yeah, basically. And she and Shatner side by side yucking it up about their time on Star Trek. So I mean, obviously she's available and interested and still
friendly,
part of the family. So why the hell not? I think that would have been great, because that whole Antonio thing, not only did it always drive me crazy because it's a completely new and unknown element, but I can't properly place that in the timeline. When the hell was that supposed to have happened in Kirk's career? I've never been able to
was,
properly place that at all.
It was just a plot element, you know. I remember when I saw it in the movies, it was just like, oh, and then she's just don't you just sort of see like the back of her head or something?
A silhouette, basically.
Silhouette, yeah. You know, basically she's just shown as this sort of idealized.
Yeah, she's like Lady Godiva on the hill silhouette type of thing, and that's all you really ever get. And, you know, when you've already, you know, thrown in things like Sulu's daughter that we'd never heard of before and all these other elements that are suddenly thrown in there, it gave me the feeling of a movie that hadn't been properly researched, you know? So, yeah, I think that would have been a hell of a bone to throw in, you know, to bring that element in. And it really would have, I think it would have done so much. It would have given Shatner a connection to the movie. It would have given him a chance to really act and bring his A game. It would have brung a sense of tying back to the old series and everything, and it would have shown the fans.
It would have made sense too.
Yeah, it would have made a lot.
Actually, really made the most sense of anybody they would have put him with.
Absolutely, and you know, I think we had hinted at this before when we did our commentary for Star Trek V. That personally, I would like to believe that if Kirk had allowed Sybok to reach into his mind and pull out his pain, that this very likely could have been what Sybok found.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Edith Keeler thing.
He would have found, and I forgot Kirk lost his son too.
Mm-hmm.
So
but even that didn't affect him. You know,
well, he barely knew his son.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's a good point too. Well, I know we're up against the clock. So the last thing I wanted to talk about real quick was the Guardian itself, and this has become quite the little Star Trek. It's almost a crutch at this point, because originally, you know, it never appeared again in the original series. They did use it for what I still consider to be the best episode of the animated series, which was Yesteryear, and that is an episode that, in a lot of ways, right up there with this one. That's a strong episode. I think it's ironic, actually, that both of the best episodes of each series involve the Guardian of Forever.
Well, they involve the Guardian of Forever, and they involve very emotional, even in Spock's case, and very intense, you know, personality-forming moments for Spock, you know, in his childhood, and for Kirk in his adulthood. You know, they're true character development moments in you know, a weekly or whatever the cartoons were, you know, an ongoing series where character development was usually not really a factor. If there was character development, it was discarded in the next one. But both of those have resonance as to really, you know, feeling they both give you the feeling that you've seen a very important part in that person's life, you know, something that's going to resonate forever, you know. You sort of see how Spock, you know, not how he became what he was, but what he was before he was the Spock of today, you know, that he was when he had more foibles and conflict with himself, you know. And the same with Kirk, you know. You got to see Kirk with his guard. You got to see them both with their guard down in both of those episodes. Yeah, I'm not as harsh on the animated series as you, but I will agree that that episode stands out as. And who wrote that? Did DC Fontana wrote that episode?
DC Fontana, yeah.
And so you got one of the A writer, you know, I personally think DC Fontana is probably the best Star Trek writer you got, you know. She sort of seemed to get it, I think, the most. So you got a Harlan Ellison story and a DC Fontana story, both, you know, around the Guardian of Forever. So they're like the A game shows, and the cartoons. A lot of the times the cartoons were just either a rehash, just sort of an adventure, or sometimes almost kind of nonsensical. And that one was really cohesive, and, you know, and it had Spock's pet. You know, how cool is that Spock's pet's a big saber-toothed wolf creature?
Yeah, I like those things.
You know, I mean, I mean, as a kid, it was funny because I never saw that for years and years, and I'd seen pictures of it and stuff. So it was like one of the holy grails for me to finally see that episode. You know, when I finally tuned one in, you know, at a young age, it was just like, oh, I finally get to see the legendary. You know, I wanted to see the Spock's childhood so bad, you know. Yeah, I personally can't wait in some way, shape, or form to cover the animated series. I know you're not quite as
Well, I mean, I'm
excited about it.
No, I mean, I don't, hate it or anything. And to be honest, I'm not even sure, and I hate to admit this, I'm not even sure I've seen every single episode. So, I mean, eventually when we do get to it, I'm kind of looking forward to it as, an area of Trek that, I have not fully explored. So who knows?
Right.
There might be other stuff. And I mean, there are other episodes that I can watch, and there's other episodes I enjoy. It's just, for my money, the only one I ever truly loved was Yesteryear, and I found all the others severely lacking. And it doesn't help that Yesteryear was, I'm pretty sure, the very first episode. So when you've got your best one first, it's like, well, then it's only downhill from there. And it kind of took the wind out of my sails, as far as watching it. But, I do like that, of course, because it's a cartoon, then, they were free to, they didn't have budgetary constraints, so they could have wackier aliens.
You have
and
some
things like that.
Neat aliens. There's you see, the thing is, there's only really a handful of those episodes I really consider good, and then there's some that are just your standard cheesy animation by Filmation, who weren't known for being top of the line. This was like top of the line for Filmation. This was Filmation really, they got the actors, because Filmation wasn't like Disney or something. They were sort of like a company that would get a license to do something and then sort of throw it together,
Right.
And they had stock music, and they were kind of on the cheap. And but there's a couple of these. There's one where they find this old lost drifting ghost spaceship that, when they beam over to it, it's sort of enclosed in a force field that keeps an atmosphere around it. So they're in this big gothic broken up ship with space all, something
Right.
they never could have done on the show ever and gotten away with it. Oh, just an aside, something I read today. Scientists are pretty sure they have invented a tractor beam.
Oh, wow.
So a little bit of Star Trek technology. It's going to be something I guess they put on satellites to push away space debris.
Oh, that would be like a deflector then. That's pretty cool.
Not as much of a deflector. But like something that it seems like it like grabs onto something and pushes it away. I always picture a deflector shield. You're right. I always pictured deflector shields as being sort of like a solid wall in space, but
well, the screens, like the shields, were supposed to be basically like a solid thing around it, but the the front deflector dish on the Enterprise
pushes things away.
Yeah, the way and this is my limited understanding of it, but the way I always had thought that it worked was that as they're zipping along doing warp 3 or whatever, it's actually sending like an invisible beam or wave or something ahead of the ship that's making
like
sure that it's
plow.
knocking everything out of the way, so that they're not being pelted with like micrometeors and shit like that, that could, you can imagine if you're traveling at, 3 times the speed of light
for
and
months
you get
on end,
hit
for
by
years.
something that's the size of, a pinhead, it's going to mess you up. So.
Yep. The best illustration of that, what was it? I want to say Ghosts of Mars. It wasn't Ghosts of Mars. It was that Brian De Palma Mission to Mars.
Mission to Mars, yeah.
When they're sitting there and just all of a sudden out of nowhere, like just a little piece of dust fucks them all up. Just puts a pinhole in their ship and through a couple screens and just like messes the whole thing up really bad. But so there's some Star Trek tech. I'm still waiting for the transporter.
Well, didn't they supposedly beam like a, what was it, like?
It was like a micro
particle.
It was like
or something?
a particle, yeah, like a particle of energy or something, you know, something on the subatomic level or something like that, you know, nothing, you know, like a first baby step. But I'm still waiting for when, you know, they send the first chimp across the country through the transporter, and he comes out inside out,
inside
like
out.
a fly.
Well, I wanted to close out the episode with kind of a plea to the listeners. We have some great listeners that know so much more about Star Trek than we do. And so
sure.
I just want to put out a plea to them. If anybody knows of anything, be it a book or comic book or anything like that, that kind of deals with the ramifications of this episode in the lives of the characters, particularly Kirk, I'd really like to read that. I mean, I know that The Guardian has been in, you know, umpteen stories, you know, in the comics and the novels and stuff. And I'm not talking specifically about The Guardian. I'm talking about basically,
Edith Keeler.
you know, as soon as the screen fades to black in this episode, I want more. I want to know what happens to Kirk after this. And I know that there's a series of books out there. There's a trilogy out there called the Crucible books. And I have the Kirk book. And I think that might be what I'm looking for. I just haven't had time to read it yet. The only other thing I'm aware of is there was a book years ago called Final Frontier that takes place a short time after this episode, where Kirk basically goes back home to kind of mourn, you know, his loss and everything. And it ends up, he like goes back to his family's farm and he's poring over, like, I don't know, like old letters or something. And it becomes a flashback book that's all about Kirk's father. I didn't like it very much. I liked that framing element of the story, but I mean, I specifically want that story, if it's ever told, of basically the day after the city on the edge of forever. I want that story. So if anybody knows if anything like that's ever been done, I'd love to read it.
It's 24 hours of Kirk laying in his bed going, no. Oh, God. And like eating ice cream. And then sitting on the shitter. Taking a shower.
We're so sensitive, aren't we?
Dirk and Janet Rand.
I think we have our...
Sorry to
right there.
End it so crassly. Do you ever find yourself going to Amazon.com and buying some record or movie or some stupid thing that Two True Freaks have been talking about so that you can catch up on it, or you've been reminded of it or something? Well, now, how about this? Instead of going to Amazon.com, go to twotruefreaks.libsyn.com and follow our link to Amazon.com. When you do that, if you buy something over at Amazon, we get a little cut out of it, which is awesome because we love money and it won't cost you a thing.
Did you know you can sponsor an episode of this or any other of your favorite Two True Freaks affiliated shows? That's right. Simply click the PayPal link on our website, donate any amount at all, tell us which show you're choosing and what message, if any, you'd like us to read on your behalf, and you will be an official sponsor of that show's very next episode, with your message read in the show's opener. It's that easy, and there is no minimum donation. Be a show sponsor today. Visit our website at twotruefreaks.libsyn.com. Two True Freaks is always spelled TWOTRUEFREAKS. Libsyn is spelled LIBSYN.
You can email Two True Freaks directly at twotruefreaks@gmail.com.
Join our forum at forumforgeeks.com, where you can discuss all of the shows on our feed with us and your fellow listeners.
You can find Two True Freaks on Facebook. Just search for Two True Freaks.
And hey, you can friend me, Scott Gardner, on Facebook too. My name is spelled SCOTTGARDNER.
You can friend me on Facebook too, if you can find me.
Now available, 2 True Freaks t-shirts. See our website for details.
2 True Freaks is a very proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. You can check that out at www.comicspodcast.com, where you can hear our new episodes when we put them up.
We are also members of the League of Comic Book Podcasts. For more information, visit comicbooknoise.com/league.
If you ever leave your house and you actually have friends, why don't you tell them about 2 True Freaks? Thanks for listening.
And join us every Monday for new episodes of
2 True Freaks. Tune in for next Star Trek Monthly Monday as Kirk marries Miramonte in the Paradise Syndrome, which we are picking because it goes perfectly with this episode. It'll be the 2 Kirk's love of his life episodes in a row. So there you go. No random generator. We're subverting the process. Screw you!
Two True Freaks has been brought to you today by Damanzo Corps of Milan, Italy, and by the letters F and U.